Hello, everybody. I'd like to chat with you today about a book I picked up from the new sci-fi section of my local library, Readymade Bodhisattva. It's a collection of Korean science fiction, and in a lot of cases, it's the only English translation of the works of some of these authors. So I'm really excited that I found it, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. I want to highlight a couple of stories from here that I personally found particularly interesting, but before that, I want to highlight the art. All of the illustrations in the book are by Hong Min Lee, and they're great. Hold on. This one is my favorite. There's a nice mixture of like surrealism and sci-fi aesthetic, and they all match what's in the story pretty well, even if even if it's not immediately obvious. This is the illustration for Between Zero and One by, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot your name right here, Kim Bo Young, and I'm not going to talk about this one today um, because the reaction I had to it was very personal and it made me cry in public. Um, Thanks, but also thanks. Uh, but yeah, the illustrations are great. So, the first story I want to talk about is Perfect Society by Moon Yun Sung. I'm not a huge fan of the novel excerpt inclusions in any anthology, and this one has a lot of missing context, imperfectly filled in with footnotes. But it did get me interested in the book itself, which I suppose was the point. Unfortunately, all of the searches I did for translations of this book into English came up with this anthology as the only one, so I guess it's time to learn Korean. Barring that, if anyone does know of another translation, let me know in the comments. I would love to read this book. The basic premise of Perfect Society is that gender and other dividing factors of society, like race and national origin, have been eradicated. The primary focus is on gender. The protagonist that we follow is the last man who survived the womaning of the entire world by being frozen. I think the frozen bit is in the footnotes. However, and this is the really interesting part, there's still a class system, a two-tier system with an upper class and a lower working class. And society kind of sucks immensely, at least from the parts that are shown in the excerpt. There's a lot of directions that this could be taken, and it's hard to tell where Yun Sung is going with this just from the chunk of the middle of the book that's here in the anthology, but I am super interested in finding out what that is, what the book has to say. Unfortunately, I don't speak Korean, so I have to wait for someone else who does to translate the whole thing. Or for someone to tell me that the translation already exists and that I'm not looking hard enough. Someone please do one of those things. The second story I want to talk about is another contender for my favorite, Along the Fragments of My Body by Bok Ge-il. In this one, the robot characters are used to have a sort of ship of Theseus conversation about what makes us who we are. The final question of the story, which is whether the reassembled robot made from the replaced parts of the robot artist doing the exhibition is the same person as that artist, is left unanswered. We don't stick around long enough to see the reactivation. Instead, we focus on the robot protagonist discussing with the others how the human body goes through a similar but less obvious process. Alongside this, and perhaps as an attempt to answer the question, is the fact that a number of the robots from the colony are planning to move to a different one and have new experiences. One of these characters is the protagonist's mentor, so this is another large topic of conversation. And we spend the whole story following the protagonist, trying to understand both why her mentor and the others are leaving, and also trying to understand what's going on in the art exhibition. And it's pretty interesting. Like I said, a contender for one of my favorites in the anthology. And finally, we have the titular story of the anthology, Readymade Bodhisattva by Park Sung-han, which centers around a robot who has achieved enlightenment. Most of the story revolves around a point of view character, a robotics technician, and the monks who work with the robot, trying to figure out how this even happened. As it turns out, it was just a process of the robot realizing that he was already enlightened. Being a robot, he was born, built, without any worldly desires as a starting point, was destined from the beginning to become enlightened, a bodhisattva from birth. For people who don't know, a bodhisattva in Buddhism is someone who is destined or predicted to become a Buddha. And depending on which denomination you're talking about, there are slightly different requirements. But seems like this robot fulfilled them. A conflict arises towards the end of the story when the CEO of the UR Corporation wants to deny/cover up that this has happened. Basically, the idea is all of the chaos that this would cause, and how could we possibly continue using robots as easy servants if they have a Buddha nature, and this will affect the bottom line profit margins. Oh no. It's a very interesting take on the robots as the working class metaphor, which I might be talking about in greater detail in the near future. So watch for that. And that's some of Readymade Bodhisattva. If anything that I just talked about sounds remotely interesting to you, you should go and find it. A lot of this is new to the West. A lot of the authors in here are decades and decades of writing, and are quite famous in South Korea, but we don't know about, we don't have their writing as much, and that's unfortunate. So see if you can pick this up. And if you liked this video, please tell all your friends, because I have been informed by one of my 6 subscribers that I'm not showing up in feeds and whatnot, which I'm shocked by, totally shocked by, flabbergasted even. So just, let someone know that I exist. That would be neat. And you have a beautiful day. A conflict arises towards the end of the story when the CEO of the UR Corporation, UR, I wonder what reference that's making.